Namaste, Jai Hind and welcome to this edition of The Right Stand. There was a time, ladies and gentlemen, when poverty lines were lowered to uplift people from poverty. And there is a time now where the State Bank of India report says that incomes have tripled in the last 9 or 10 years. And so many more people have come above the poverty line. 13.5 crore was the number Prime Minister Narendra Modi said from the ramparts of the Red Fort. But the rise and rise of India has now been researched and documented in this SBI report, which says that the middle class income is up by nearly 3 times. Income has tripled in the last 10 years from an average of about 4.4 to about 13 lakhs. The rise, like I said, 13 lakhs in the financial year 2022. The other aspect, over 50 crore Jan Dhan accounts as we speak. Whoever calls this government a right-wing government must look back and see in the last 10 years the amount of welfarism that has been unleashed. How Nehruvian are they in their approach, how socialist are they in their approach is something one has to see. 56% of the account holders are women and 67% of these accounts are in rural and semi-urban areas. So the rise and rise of Bharat, as Prime Minister Narendra Modi says, that it will enter into the top 3 economies in the world very, very soon, is because people of India are growing. They are becoming wealthier, and the SBI report predicts that by 2047, the average income should be 50 lakhs. That's the level to which the growth will happen. But is India growing? And is another neighbor, a very pesky one at that, who's been trying to encroach upon our territorial sovereignty and also digital sovereignty on the wane? Multiple print publishing houses, media houses are predicting a Lehman Brothers-like situation in the People's Republic of China that's been run by the PLA and the CCP since 1949. Is it on the wane, and is it a crisis that is going to take many years for China and the CCP to actually overcome? That's the top focus on The Right Stand tonight. In March 2023, President Xi Jinping was awarded an unprecedented third term as the President of the People's Republic of China and the leader of the CCP, amid challenges with the United States and tensions with neighbors like Taiwan, marking the beginning of the second decade of his rule. Now, this term also put Xi Jinping on the path to becoming the longest-serving head of state. And now, 5 months later, his policies of curbs and control over business giants are being termed as one of the immediate reasons for the economic crisis post the pandemic. Many experts say Xi Jinping's bid to reduce regional disparity and poverty by directly or indirectly damaging his political allies and businesses business tycoons of China has actually cost the country dear. And the most important issue, the turbulence within China's property sector is only worsening. That's what's happening. China's real estate developers have debt worth 12% of the nation's GDP. And they are at risk of default, ladies and gentlemen. Around 48% of the sector's borrowing is at the risk of default. Nearly half of the borrowings are at the risk of the default. An analysis of China's 186 listed developers shows that about 48% of the total borrowing is held by companies who have defaulted on public bonds during the 2021-2022 property rout. News reports are highlighting that companies accounting for 40% of the home sales have actually defaulted. Sector's crisis unfolded sometime mid-2021. And this is now becoming very, very serious. Most of them are private property developers. News reports also suggest that the debt curve could curb growth in the world's second largest economy for many years to come. And the situation of China's top property firms point to the country's brewing crisis. Also, are the coffers drying is a big question. Country Garden, one of the largest non-state-owned developers has a large exposure at lower tier cities and China's largest property developer before this year. The firm warned of multi-billion-dollar losses and missed bond payments. The company's stock is down by over 70% this year and is now considering to adopt various debt management measures. Then Evergrande, the story is out on CNN and many publications in the US. Once China's top property developer defaulted on its debt in the year 2021, lost $81 billion of shareholder money in 2021-2022, struggling with nearly $340 billion in liabilities. Well, as mentioned, China is not just battling property woes, it's also facing several other economic issues which is hurtling itself into a huge, severe economic crisis. And as per the July data access. Now, what's happening with Evergrande is that it's got its investments even in the US. And the US courts are now going to now knock on the doors and look at entities which are foreign entities, investments here and the world over. What is the impact that's going to happen as they file for bankruptcy? The markets have tanked the world over. Is this going to trigger yet another subprime lending crisis kind of a situation with the Lehman Brothers triggered in the US? Is this going to happen in China? It's another big speculation doing the rounds. Meanwhile, over in China, consumer prices have declined in July for the first time in more than 2 years. The official consumer price index, a measure of inflation, fell by just 0.3% last month from a year earlier. And new bank loans fell to a 14-year low in July. Have a look at these numbers. Home prices fell in July for the first time this year. Industrial production increased 3.7% in July from a year earlier, lower than 4.3%. That's the 4.3% was the median estimate in the Bloomberg survey of economists. Retail sales growth slowed to 2.5%, worse than the median forecast of 4%. Growth in fixed assets investment weakened to 3.4% in the first 7 months of this year, below the 3.7% forecast that was being made by economists. Property investment contracted 8.5% in this period, worse than the first 6 months of the year. The urban jobless rate rose to 5.3% from 5.2% in June. And in fact, China has stopped publishing its youth unemployment rate. In June, the jobless rate for 16 to 24-year-olds had reached a record 21.3%. China set an economic growth target of around about 5% for 2023, one of the lowest in many decades. A similar projection was made by several others. Barclays said that China's growth rate would be 4.5% to 4.9%. That would be the range. Morgan Stanley said 4.7% to 5%. JP Morgan once again said 4.8 to 5%. Nobody giving it more than 5% growth rate. And our group editor Security getting us more details. That amid more worrying monthly economic data, the Communist Party mouthpiece has actually highlighted Xi Jinping's speech, which called for patience and resilience in pursuit of national rejuvenation. Understand the words, the meaning that it implies. That's what. But what led to the crisis? CNN News 18 is decoding Xi Jinping's policies, the 5 key factors that led to the economy slowdown, ladies and gentlemen. Analyzing the 5 key reasons. First, zero COVID aftermath. This entire zero COVID policy, China was relying on zero COVID approach for a long time to deal with this entire pandemic issue in contrast with other nations. But after the countrywide protest, Xi Jinping had to begin relaxing lockdown, putting an end to this entire zero COVID policy, which in turn led to a massive resurgence of the infection in the country after 3 years since the pandemic. Repeated lockdowns hit manufacturing, commerce hubs, leading to instability for factories and companies that were already suffering. And this also affected the mental health, physical health of the employees, employers, and the industries. So that's what happened. This entire zero COVID aftermath. Let's move on from this to the next point, the tectonic shift. So the tectonic shift, tech giants asked to uphold data security. Since 2020, Beijing has been going on very strict with tech giants such as Alibaba and Tencent to uphold data security and keep national interest over business interest, hitting them with terms such as the disorderly expansion of capital, put nation above business interest, they've said, move led to mass exodus of several giants. So, savage growth, double reduction and spiritual opium, and this led to mass exodus. Then, the reality is the real deal. So, the real estate sector, overburdened firms failed to deliver on projects. Crisis unfolded mid-2021. Companies accounting for 40% of Chinese home sales defaulted, most of them private property developers. First, builders defaulted with the commitment of delivering the projects and caused public anger, and this led to mortgage, boycott on developers, supply chains, bankers, government, and then the credit polarization and preference change hit the developers. Massive increase in non-performing loan ratio. Multiple issues. Then, local government debt risks on the rise and not being contained post-pandemic. Most of the provinces are highly overdraft on their overdrafts with banks, and they've not been contained. Rapid decline in land sale, they're short of money. Local government debts is a third of China's debt, almost at $49 trillion. This is the local debt. Then the job market, the fifth factor, at 21.3% in June, the unemployment rate of youth aged between 16 to 24 has reached a record high, after which they have stopped publishing unemployment data. Almost 10 million youth entered the market last year, and they are unlikely that they will have jobs. This is a serious situation in China, and many say they are going to take many years to get out of it, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go across to our guest, Sushant Sareen, strategic analyst and strategic affairs expert and senior fellow ORF with us. And we have Einar Tangen, senior fellow of the Taihe Institute. Namaste, gentlemen. Thank you very much. Not good tidings, Mr. Tangen. How serious is the problem, the economic crisis? There are many other factors, but many publishing houses worldwide are fearing a subprime lending crisis kind of situation, a Lehman Brothers kind of situation.
Oh, I don't know exactly what you mean by a Lehman Brothers situation. This is a completely different situation. Definitely, China is facing headwinds, especially globally. So at this juncture, they have to make changes. China has more leeway in the way that it does things because it's the system. The party controls a lot of the economic side. So yeah, there are issues out there. I don't know if it's to the extent of the kind of tabloid, economic analysis that has been given. But remember, for the last 25 years, the doom of China has been predicted by everybody on a yearly basis, including the economists. And somehow they're never right, but always uncertain. China is different. It has, as I said, a toolbox, which is quite extraordinary. So I don't think it's necessarily the time to count them out. They, are. Go ahead. I'll let your other guest comment.
No, because Mr. Tangen, one of the aspects of diplomacy and also China's growth has been its economic heft, economic power. Sushant, would you agree that this crisis, if it expands, China has huge exposures worldwide? Not just in POJK with the CPEC, but its own Belt and Road projects, $200 billion plus, OBOR everywhere. You have the ports in Gwadar, and of course its own missions and its own mines and operations in the Africa nations and also in Latin America.
Of papers. So if he wants to call them tabloids, he's welcome to it. But this is a problem which has been growing over the decades. Now, I completely agree with you that if there is a major crisis, economic crisis in China, the impact of that will be global. It will not be limited only to China, number one. Number two, one of the reasons why, and I'm just saying this is one of the reasons, there are plenty of reasons, but one of the reasons why some of these problems are arising is because many of these projects under this so-called ambitious BRI project have been tough projects. For example, virtually every single project in Pakistan is losing money, bleeding money. The Chinese companies are not getting paid. They're leaning on the Pakistanis. The Pakistanis have nothing to give to them. The Chinese are not giving any more money to the Pakistanis, but constantly rolling over their old debts, but their companies are not getting paid. Similarly, in many of the other parts. Now, up to a point, you can control it by striking deals of the sort you did in Hambantota. But beyond that point, the music has to stop and things start, collapsing. Then, look, there are people, economists in India, including somebody who's in the Prime Minister's office now, who almost 4-5 years back had predicted this kind of a financial contagion hitting China. I could take the name because it was not exactly a secret meeting in which he was speaking, but I would rather not. I don't have his permission. But he had predicted exactly the kind of trajectory of events which we are seeing unfold today. Not just in the shadow banking sector, and in fact, your report should have included the shadow banking in China, which is in deep crisis. And according to some estimates, it's almost $3 trillion worth, and it's on the verge of collapse. And the government, despite being a totalitarian, authoritarian dictatorship, will find it difficult to contain it. There is a contagion affecting the real estate sector, which is a very large part of the economy. And in fact, we have known, again, this is not tabloids, we have known for many years now of this phenomena of ghost cities being built. So a lot of those excesses of the past are now coming back to haunt the Chinese. And some of the reasons for that also are geopolitical. But some of the reasons also have to do with the kind of the sheer magnitude of corruption which exists in China, at least at the top levels of the government. You mean to tell me all these big companies which are doing billions and tens of billions of dollars of business do not have links with the CCP? They are not connected. This is not crony capitalism. In fact, I can give you a list of books which you should read, written again by very credible people, not by tabloid journalists, which unveil the kind of web of corruption that affects China. So I think it's a combination of factors. But at the same time, and I'll just take half a minute, I think we also have to recognize that while there is going to be a financial crisis in China, the strength of the real economy in China cannot entirely be ignored. It will get disrupted, it will get devastated by the financial crisis, but China is a manufacturing giant. We should recognize that. So it is not exactly, a country which is going down the tube. It's going to face very serious crisis, and even a 2-3% growth rate in a $14 trillion economy is not to be scoffed at. It might not be as good as what the Chinese want it to be, but it is not something which anybody can scoff at. So I think we need to on balance look at things on balance rather than just give in.
But economic crisis amongst the people, more than 10 million jobless youth, and if that number is only going to increase, this is going to cause internal strife. There were videos in 2021, 2022, which came in unconfirmed. Many Chinese officially would deny it. But there was a situation that a lot of the provinces are also highly overdrawn on their debts. And that's a huge debt, $49 trillion upwards. Aina Tangen. Now, are these aspects which Chinese authorities, the CCP, can actually tide over, given the geopolitics? Given a certain, inclination of nations to move beyond China or look beyond China for options for trade?
Well, yes. I mean, you can see in China anything you want. The fact is it's nearer to 18 trillion than 14 trillion. I don't know when the last time my colleague has been in China. But, yes, there are global headwinds. You keep talking about this as if this is only affecting China. It's affecting all countries around the world. And quite frankly, China, as I keep saying, has the tools to deal with it. Now, that does not mean there's not going to be pain. This notion that somehow, China is massively corrupt, as in other countries, I think you're wrong. Quite frankly, it's one of the few nations that has been able to come to terms with corruption. It pays its policemen enough so that they can actually do their duty without having to take bribes. It is a country that has, as we've seen with the rocket force, any kind of corruption is not tolerated at the top or at the middle or bottom. It makes it unique. But in going forward, yes, there are serious global headwinds. I note you wanted, my colleague wanted to say that he had somebody unnamed who saw this forecoming 5 years ago. I wonder if he foresaw that there was going to be COVID-19. I find this a little bit much. As I said, I mean, year after year, I have been a commentator watching the international situation. Yes, Bloomberg, The Economist, all of these magazines have foretold the fall of China year after year. So you may not call it tabloid journalism, but when you're consistently wrong, I think that takes away from your credibility. So at this juncture, yes, China does have issues. It would be foolish to say that they don't. But have they been in the past able to solve them? And the answer has been yes.
They have, but are the problems the same as they have been in the past, or is this time the size of the problem far more gargantuan and the challenges because of the global headwinds, like you said, and also perhaps, Sushant Sareen, that there is, it's not the go to China policy, it's the China +1 policy, or anywhere but China mood across the world that could further hamper a Chinese recovery?
Yeah, that's true. Well, it certainly will impact, the kind of investments that the investments already have fallen drastically. The investments going into China, that's fallen. A number of industries are moving out. There is a shift taking place out of China. But look, here is the thing. The people, and I'm not talking about the crazies. I'm talking about very sensible, credible people who were predicting things on the basis of numbers, and numbers which are generated by the Chinese system. They were not manufacturing numbers out of thin air.
Right.
They were looking at numbers in the Chinese economy and were coming up with their analysis. The problem has been precisely this, that yes, those numbers which were throwing up red signals should have been, the Chinese managed to paper over those problems. They never fixed the structural issues which were causing those numbers to go out of sync with what they should have been.
Right.
As a result, what is happening is that the problems have continued to grow because, there is, in economics, you have something called, when you, in a manner of speaking, you incentivize people who are doing something shady, then they tend to do more of it even when they get a bailout. And the problems have, like in Pakistan, they continued. I have been, for example, predicting for 10 years that the Pakistan economy is sinking. Today it is sinking simply because the music has stopped. The same thing is in China. The ability of the state, no matter how big, how strong that state is, how economically powerful that state is, if it doesn't fix the structural problems and keeps papering over them, the problems grow to a magnitude that it becomes a lot more difficult to control them and contain them than what it was in the past. And that is where China has reached. Yet, just one more point. The political problem for the Communist Party is going to be that, the kind of dictatorship and authoritarian regime which it has imposed depended in large part, it derived legitimacy from its economic performance.
Right.
And if the economic performance starts tanking and that pain starts increasing, then serious questions will be raised. I'm not saying that the CCP will be out of office, but I'm not sure if the current leadership of the CCP can withstand the pressures.
Right. Sushant Sareen, Aina Tangan, thank you very much. I have to move on here. We've got plenty of ground to cover on the show. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you. Moving on, ladies and gentlemen, to another story from the neighborhood. Another bid to provoke Bharat. Pakistan has appointed jailed separatist Yasin Malik's wife Mushaal Hussain Malik as part of the Pakistan caretaker Prime Minister Anwaar-ul-Haq Kakar's cabinet. Mushaal Hussain Malik will be special assistant to Prime Minister on human rights in the caretaker cabinet in Pakistan, while her husband Yasin Malik, arrested, convicted to life imprisonment in connection with the 2017 terror funding case, accused of carrying out terrorism, inciting violent activities in the Jammu and Kashmir region. His wife will preach on human rights. Now, so why is it a provocation? It comes at a time when Jammu and Kashmir is witnessing a new era of peace. husband Yasin Malik has been convicted for terror charges in India. Message to separatists that Pakistan rewards anti-India elements. Days after Jammu and Kashmir began probe of Justice Ganju's murder case. Intel sources also revealing to News 18 that Mushaal Malik's entry to Pak PMO is just to give some face saving and some amount of boost to the ISI. Intel sources revealing that she is very close to the top brass of the army and the ISI and working for Jammu and Kashmir division of the ISI very closely. The source reveals that Mushaal Malik stays in Islamabad, the ISI safe house, and has been there for a while with her young daughter. Mushaal Malik and Yasin Malik got married in 2009 and they have they have a daughter. And this daughter also spoke against India in the POK assembly. Intel sources reveal that ISI is under threat of non-performance from a period of time since their continuous failures, and it's troubling them. Hence, the appointment has been made because ever since the abrogation of Article 374 years, the ISI has not been able to do anything significant in Jammu and Kashmir, and it's a major embarrassment. Intelligence sources reveal that Mushaal's appointment won't bring any value to the narrative because the Kashmir issue is overdone and Kashmir is an integral part of India. Also, it exposes the face of the ISI that they want terrorists or those linked to terrorists in their PMO. The fact that they do not back terror, it's not state-sponsored, but indirectly support it, is proven. That's what the Indian intelligence sources believe. In the past also, Mushaal Malik has spewed venom against India and has also opposed India's bid to host the G20 summit. On G20, she wrote a letter and said Kashmiri people are facing the worst human rights crisis. She went on to say that India is giving false message about normalcy in Jammu and Kashmir and spread narrative that India has been exposed twice by the UN on human rights violation, but Mushaal remains silent on the atrocities meted out to minorities in Pakistan. Just the other day, a church vandalized, desecrated in Faisalabad. Temples burnt down, desecrated, vandalized in Karachi. Even as Pakistan continues to sponsor terrorism in India, Mushaal is spreading propaganda that India is killing unarmed Kashmiris. The G20 meet in Srinagar put paid to all these doubts. So why do this and further expose themselves? That's the question. We get a move on, ladies and gentlemen. Close the home. This is a news break here on the Right Stand, and it's a serious concern. Data privacy, data protection bill has been passed, but the issue, there is a big issue, massive debate on data localization, data sovereignty. News 18 has accessed an intel note via our group editor security Manoj Gupta that raises serious concerns about the misuse of data by foreign tech giants. The note reveals that all tech giants should be under obligation that they will not share the data abroad. The note also raises serious concerns about the locations of the servers, because even if we do localization, their servers are in the host countries. Intelligence has raised concerns about the process of localization, and they need is for more important, strong legislations, and localization must be should be expressly mentioned to these tech giants, because both are related to sovereignty of the country. Same data can be used against a particular party or individual by making mathematical algorithms, because you know choices, trends, preferences. Well, a short while ago, upon the successive implementation of the DPDP bill, we had spoken with Union Minister Rajiv Chandrasekhar, who said that it's not going to stop with the DPDP bill. We are working on a longer, stronger act to protect our data sovereignty and also ensure data localization. But when will it come to fruition? That's the bigger question. Vineet Goenka, author, Function of Data Sovereignty, is with us. The Pursuit of Supremacy, and also Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni, defense expert and also part of this think tank that has strongly advocated data sovereignty and localization. Namaste and Jai Hind, gentlemen. An issue that we have spoken about in the past, but we are speaking at a time when the government has guaranteed privacy and protection. But localization and sovereignty is an intelligence issue, a national security issue. General Kulkarni.
Definitely, Anand, I would see it that it is very, very essential that we must have it within the borders of a particular country, primarily to be able to handle sensitive information, because today the digital warfare, cyber attacks are increasing It is not a question of surveillance of citizens, which many people, and especially some lawmakers, seem to think, even some of the right groups, surveillance of citizens. It isn't about surveillance of citizens. Today, it's absolutely essential. Data sovereignty will lead you to supremacy. We really need to. Anand, I agree with you. The need is to be Atma-Nirbhar on servers. The servers, if they are not within the country, then there are times, you know how what China does to its servers. It may or may not, but it is essential, and therefore it is very, very important for all of us to be very careful. Data sovereignty, data localization within our borders, for which access has to be ours, or otherwise it will become extremely difficult tomorrow. I'll give you a simple example from the Prime Minister's speech. What did he say? That there are 10 crore people who were not born, nothing of those kind, and people were drawing all of it. At least in the army, we have a song in the Assam regiment which says, Badbu Ram ka badan zameen ke niche hai. फिर भी उसका राशन हमको मिलता है. At least the man was there. Here 10 crore people don't even exist. And that is the kind of things which are required, and therefore data localization within the borders to ensure, but yes, data privacy, we will be ensuring it. There is a bit of carelessness that might lead to some kind of a data leakage, but data localization is a must if you have to protect. Otherwise, we will soon be victims of cyber attacks and soon be found digitization where in India is at a very fast pace becoming a victim of this digital warfare.
See, what Rajiv ji said is that they've increased the financial penalty to up to 250 crores, and that can be per individual. So they've really reduced the criminality but increased the financial liability or exposure of anybody who is not protecting data or who is invading or breaching privacy of a user in India. But Vineet Goenka, it doesn't stop there. Servers are a capital investment issue. Already there are so many tech giants in our country who are so deeply embedded that they have close to about 500 to 800 million users or subscribers. They have penetrated 76% of our market. How are we going to tell them कि server इधर लगाओ या हमको data share करो, localize करो इसको, sovereignty का issue? How can we raise it with them? The question of data sovereignty was changed in the book. When I said all the parties, and I was the president in the part of the biggest it's a simple case of data privacy where you are and my data is being seen by somebody else who is not intended to do that, or it is not kinetic warfare, but it is strategically used as a weapon against our country. It is simple. But I congratulate the central government establishment for actually doing one step ahead. Where we did not have any law, we were not sure what is happening. Now, there is something called an exemption. Exemption will allow data and more. There is no permanent trend which is defined. It specifically says government can restrict the transfer of personal data to certain countries. Now, I think this is one reasonable move which is something what I want. Yes, we should move forward. Ask all the companies which are functioning in India, who are benefiting out of India, to physical services. Again, the benefit of the labor arbitrage is here, the cost arbitrage is here. It will also help them. It will help them to improve their bottom line, the same time, even the future. I think the second step, which is very important, is to actually get out more attention to this thing. That is going to help us out to the fifth goal. Also has power to direct revenue inquire and also to improve planning people. And these were not there. And the critical code, they must stick to understand this better. If the due respect to all these judges and the jurists, it may not be understanding this important to data movement. Because you need somebody understanding this is providing for the data. And you would agree on it. There is no law, there is a law, but yes, and there is not everybody else who has great things and who has different that actually right. General Kulkarni?
See what happens, Anand, what Mr. Goenka, because he was part of the entire concept of it, of that data sovereignty, I would say that, everybody, I've had the people from the Satak Nagrik Sangathan saying they want no restrictions. In India, democracy, everybody wants freedom. But that freedom, they must come with certain amount of duties also. They want freedom, they want all the rights, but no duties. They have nothing to, as a result of which we'll find the enemy exploiting everything that is going on. And you can well imagine what would happen if even for a certain, say 5 minutes, the power is off. Or for instance, anybody, I will give you a simple example. If the enemy over the last 10 years, through artificial intelligence, finds out that between 3:55 a.m. in the morning and 4:10, there is some gap available where you can infiltrate. Enemy will infiltrate without you getting to know what is happening. Because all of it is through data, all of it is through artificial intelligence, and all of it is telling them on a platter within 30 seconds that please, this is the place, this is the time, which they can physically also verify and do it. And therefore, it is very, very important that we have to have data, we have to have a total control of the data within our borders, and it's not a question of surveillance on citizens, it's a question of collecting data whenever we want to utilize it. Or otherwise, we'll have defense, space, ISRO, DRDO, private industry, so many of them, where our own Atmanirbharta will come to a standing still. Because, but the need is to be Atmanirbhar, even in the concept of having the servers in our own country. Otherwise, the enemy on occasions may not be able to serve, and the servers can be in any country, not necessarily in a hostile countries only. Any place it could be, and be providing data about us. So we have to be very, very careful. I think data sovereignty, data localization within our own border is a must for us to survive in the digitized world today.
No, because this data sovereignty, and you've written about it, Vineet, so final comment, this data colonization is perhaps the biggest worry, where people are worried, and I think the Intel outfit is also worried, the mechanism is worried that the data can be used to try and change behavior, change line of thinking, what should be fed to a certain audience, because जो गया data वो तो गया ना, अभी तो पिछले the DPDP bill has only come now, it's not with retrospective effect, so they already are sitting on a huge amount, and what they can do with that to try and influence people, influence millions of people in our country, not just in urban areas, largely in rural areas, semi-urban areas, because that's where the data penetration is happening, and that's where this is open fleecing which is happening. Also, government websites, all government schemes are huge repositories of data. Is all that data in India, or that is also being stored elsewhere? Because that a lot of the back end is also being outsourced.
So, Anand, if you read the book, in the first 15 pages itself, we have defined the way the warfare will be done. The days of the kinetic war is over. Data will be weaponized. It will be used as a weapon against you, against your country, everybody. And unfortunately, the past data which has already been given to them, which has been taken by them, can be used against us. I'll give you one simple example. What was the interest of those people who hacked AIMS data? Understanding of the medical records and understanding of the practices which are going in the best health institute of this country, so that they can push their molecules, their compounds in this country.
Right.
The way they have hampered our Bangalore operation, probably that was to punish us or to tell us that if you try to aggravate the situations on the border, we will try to engage you in something which is not known to you.
Right.
So this kind of warfare will be there, and I'm sure our forces are prepared, experts are prepared, the other agencies are well prepared. But at the same time, I would just like to remind everybody that we have moved ahead. From there was nothing to that position where at least we have act now, and also rules will be there. Yes, I would like to request everybody to be careful. There is something called as security, even if there is everything on the net. Do not put your data unknowingly and freely.
Well, at least we have put out the concern. This data about data localization and this data about concern being raised about data sovereignty is out there in bits, bytes and sound bites. Let's hope that's consumed and there is a certain realization, and they move towards creating an act which also is robust enough that protects Bharat from being colonized with data. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Short break. And we're back with a very, very interesting conversation with the Indo-Israel cast, Nusrat Bharucha and also Saki Halevi. Join us on a conversation about Akelli. Stay with us.
co-powered by
terrorism that has been fomented on Indian soil having state backing. This move itself shows that Pakistan's activity on Indian soil is state backed. There is no concept of non-state actors at all.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Anand, and explaining that point beautifully when it is about the appointment of Mushaal Malik as far as the caretaker cabinet in Pakistan is concerned. We have our eyes on the story. The India Association, however, right now is not getting much response. We did try to actually pose that question to Mehbooba Mufti, but she's decided to stick to what concerns the country and not what is happening in Pakistan. We leave it at that. We're slipping into a very, very short break. We're coming right back with lots more that's happening on CNN News 18. The CNN News 18 exclusive. Now we are learning that Mushaal Malik's entry to Pakistan PMO is just to give a face saving to ISI. And this is as per sources. We are given to understand that Mushaal Malik has been very closely working with the top brass of the Pakistani army and also the ISI. I have my colleague Anand Narsimhan to offer more perspective on this big piece of breaking news that we have on the broadcast. But before we go to him, let's actually offer more inputs on what we are learning through this exclusive news break. Now, we are given to understand that Mushaal Malik was working for the Kashmir division of the ISI very, very closely. Remember, Yasin Malik has been detained. He has been sentenced to life imprisonment in a terror funding case in Kashmir. We are also given to understand that Mushaal Malik in fact stays in Islamabad, and this she does in an ISI safe house, and this has been on for a very, very long time, and she's staying there with her young daughter who has spoken against the Pakistan occupied Kashmir Assembly, against India, and we have these several instances that also talk about Mushaal Malik, association with Pakistani army, and more importantly, Pakistan Intelligence Agency, the ISI. And the fact that she is working very, very closely on the Kashmir division of the ISI also raises a lot of eyebrows. Remember, this is also a major snap that the Pakistan authorities are planning when it comes to India. The intel suggests that this was a strategic appointment as far as the caretaker cabinet in Pakistan is concerned, and that's why the appointment of Mushaal Malik becomes important. Two important points: her close association with the Pakistan Army and the ISI. My colleague Anand Narsimhan is with us. Yes, Anand.
Well, Mushaal Malik herself is educated at the London School of Economics. She is a bright person herself, no questions asked. But her connections with Yasin Malik and her actions, that's what turns the spotlight. If the JKLF has rushed to issue a statement against Mushaal saying that she's got nothing to do with Yasin Malik, then we should know that she's got everything to do with him. They have a daughter. They got married in 2009. They have a daughter, and mind you, the daughter also spoke in the POK Assembly against India. So this is a narrative that's being pushed, as our group editor security Manoj Gupta is getting us the details. This is one last desperate bid by the ISI to try and steer the narrative and to try and rake up this entire Kashmir issue once again. A dead horse which they're trying to flog again and again and again, and this is a desperate measure. What are they trying to do ahead of the G20 summit in India, and more importantly the UNGA in September? They are trying to give Mushaal Malik an official position under human rights to go and talk and raise this issue. But the fact is that she is taking charge, or she's been given charge under a caretaker government which itself is a puppet in the hands of the military establishment. So clearly it's a military driven narrative or a deep state driven narrative, an ISI driven narrative, and at a time when churches are being attacked in Faisalabad and temples are being destroyed in Karachi. So what human rights is she going to stand up for and talk about? So you can only, people who live in glass houses cannot throw stones at others at all. In this case, Pakistan has such a sorry record, one wonders what Mrs. Malik is going to defend. The other fact is that her own husband, she's not said a single word against him. Once he finds himself convicted on acts of secession and also aiding and abetting terrorism, he's still charged for being involved. And that's the alleged involvement in the killing of 4 IAF officers on Indian soil, and that too in cold blood, where scores others were injured. He is also charged with the kidnapping of the daughter of a former Chief Minister of Jammu and Kashmir and the sister of a former Chief Minister of Jammu and Kashmir. So those cases are still on. And she has till date never opened her mouth against or said a single word against Yasin Malik, who finds himself incarcerated in a jail in India after being convicted properly by the courts. He is serving life imprisonment and he has not contested those charges, or neither has he contested the sentencing. So these aspects remain. So ISI may have thought that they've got a trump card, but it may just boomerang. As far as the Indian sources are concerned, India says that Kashmir is a dead issue. The G20 in Srinagar, and 4 years later, after the abrogation of 370, as Jammu and Kashmir is fast on the path of even having assembly level elections there as a union territory very, very soon in the next year or so, then we know how far we have progressed as far as Jammu and Kashmir is concerned. And this K narrative or Kashmir narrative and flogging this dead horse is not going to yield any results. It may just prove to be counterproductive. In fact, what sources within intel sources in India are saying is it's a reflection that the terrorist activities and fomenting terrorism on Indian soil has the blessings even of the caretaker PMO. The Prime Minister's office has these blessings and they are all in cahoots. So non-state actors. Well, I have with me today two artists who've got a phenomenal body of work and who've been around for quite a while. But this project gets them together. Two different countries, two different, perhaps, school of thought in terms of approaching film, but they've come together for Akelli. Yeah. So Nusrat Bharucha with us, and also Sachi Alevi is with us. So a lot of people know him because of Fauda, but that's something he's left far behind, and he's done a lot more. He's also explored a singing career after that, but we'll come to all of that in just a bit. But first, the movie. Akelli, how did this project come your way, and what's the story?
This project came to me, I think, before lockdown. It's just about 3 years back. And believe it or not, I said no to it then. And it was a story and an idea that the director had, and I think I didn't know then, but I think over the period of shooting this film, I found out that it was something he had discovered and he had met people. So most of what we did are stories that he has come across. They are actually inspired by true life stories, which then I didn't know. I just read a script and I said this is too much. It's very heavy. It's very responsible. It's too much for me to take on alone. In the real sense of it. So I said maybe not now. Maybe I'm not prepared for this. And lockdown happened, and I think they got time to sit and think back on the script and think back on how they're going to do it. Of course, in the lockdown, there were so many things that changed. If this film would have started before lockdown, we would not have finished it, because we would have been stuck either there or here. But they took time to kind of make the script more tight. I think they trimmed out all the fat. They got the right team on. They got Saki on, they got Amir on, they got a great producer, they got a great DOP, a production designer. So the whole film came together very beautifully, and they came back to me after 3 years. They've hounded me, like they met me on a set of another film and said, listen, we came to you with this 3 years back. That time you said you were not prepared and you didn't think we would be able to do this, but we are so prepared now that I don't think you'll find a loophole in any pitch that we are making to you. And I read it again, and then I saw everything that they'd set up, and I said, yeah, I mean, I can literally walk onto set tomorrow and start shooting this. They were that ready.
First timers there in terms of they had done a lot of work in Marathi cinema, regional cinema, never done a big bang movie like this, a project which is very ambitious. When they approached you, what did you think? Who are you guys?
Yeah, exactly. That was the, I was sitting at home in Israel and reading the mail, from the casting. I said, yeah, casting, we want to send you a script. I said, okay. Thank God the year before I visited India, and I built up some relationships. So I called the guys. I called them. Is this really happening? The real casting. And then eventually, we had a Zoom call, and I said, actually, the first part that they offered me, I said, and then they offered me the part of Assad, of the antagonist in a way. And I found it very interesting. I realized that there is, especially due to the openness of working on the character and seeing how you make it much more interesting, much more complex. So there was a lot of back and forth, And thank God for that. I mean, I'm really happy that this is my first Indian project.
I know, and Vicky said this to me. He said the number of mails he's exchanged with Saki and Amir, he said, I've never done in my career. Because nobody in Bombay does so many emails. We talk, we meet, we have a paper. We have that one paperwork that we sign and it's done. He said, we have emails, like he said, there are hundreds and hundreds of emails on even like one dialogue check or like even like a thought check. It's an email confirmation. Email confirmation. He said, I've never had so many emails in my life.
And you know, it was my first time that actually Pranay, he went over all the script live in Zoom.
Oh.
That was the first time that I ever
you did like a Zoom narration.
Yeah.
We got used to that.
And yeah, I guess it's something that is used to be. I mean,
it's become a thing.
Like
yeah. Because of the lockdown, we started doing narrations and meetings on Zoom. I've done 4 hours. I was like, okay, guys, there's no more time extension left. Can we just wrap it up?
But the way Israeli film work happens there. You've done a lot of world cinema also, and how Indian film industry works and. Is there a difference, or did you say, "What am I doing here"? Did you think like that on the first day of the shoot?
What I find the most amazing about this world of cinema, and thank God I've done like only this year I've done an Argentina Spanish-speaking movie in Argentina, a Swedish series in Europe, Akelli. The DNA of the people. It's the same DNA.
It's the same DNA.
It's the same DNA, and this is what is. You know, the sound guy will always be the guy. You know, very quiet on the side. You hardly can hear him, and the DOP will be the same. So this is what I find.
The ADs will be very loud.
Yeah.
Screaming around, and it's like okay.
This is the magic of it. But what was interesting and fun, because we filmed in Uzbekistan, was to see the interaction between the Indian crew and the Uzbeki crew. And the differences of languages and understanding.
Nobody spoke each other's language. There they only speak either Russian or Uzbek. And we are all like, oh God, Hindi में चालू हुए हम हमें कैसे होने वाला है? ये light नहीं हिला सकता, ये camera नहीं समझ रहा, ये angle नहीं समझ रहा. How do you tell them what we want? What is our visual? We were really struggling.
But it's like I say, the magic is there, the passion is there, and I think there is a lot of similarity. Of course, when you work different budgets, it changes. When you work with different people and characters, it changes. But the DNA is there.
Yeah, I have to share a special, personal memory. I've gone to some of the countries in Eastern Europe, in Egypt, Africa, and some other. There is always a, smattering of Hindi cinema. The moment they say India, so they know Mithun Chakravarti, they know Amitabh Bachchan, they know Raj Kapoor. They know that genre, not the post-2000, and they know songs from there.
Yes.
Is that true in Israel?
Israel, there is a large Indian community also, and a lot of fans of Indian movies. And like you said, especially, the oldies and the songs. But they are, like, there is a Facebook page with a lot of, and they're always like they're updating. They know what's happening, new movies. They have screenings of the movies. So yeah, there's a large fan base.
So you ever heard a Hindi song in your singing career, in your interest?
He sung too.
You sung too?
As in, like he can sing it now.
I know. So,
you want to hear it?
Of course.
Yeah.
Come on, Saki, let's go.
Yeah. Okay, let's do it. Which one?
Whichever one you want. The second one, I think.
The Yara song?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, but I need the words. Okay. I hope.
This is what Yara Teri Yari Ko.
Yeah.
Amitabh Bachchan.
मेरी जिंदगी सवारे मुझको गले लगा के बैठा दिया फलक पे मुझका कसे उठा के यारा तेरी यारी को
One of my favorites.
मैंने तो खुदा माना याद करेगी दुनिया तेरा मेरा अफसाना.
Lovely. Fantastic. So, but you also went for a reality show. Despite being an established actor, you tried your luck with The Voice and some other platforms?
Oh, just, a small correction. I'm basically a singer-songwriter, musician, so I mean, my whole background is music. I gained a lot of experience performing and writing until the age of 36, 37, in which they were looking for people who speak Arabic for a film called Bethlehem that came out in 2013 and went on to win Venice Festival. So I'm actually an actor only for the past 10 years.
So then you wanted to go back to singing, or you wanted to just keep that alive? Because your acting career has really taken off.
Yeah, I feel very privileged to be able to mix both worlds, and wherever I have a chance of singing, like we did with Akelli, you know, if even this antagonist, this villain, why not make him sing a song? So wherever I have the chance to mix both worlds, that's...
So you played the antagonist, the villain.
Yes.
You've sung a song in Hindi. Nusrat, we've got to get him to sing something in Hebrew also, no?
No, the one he sang
His own
in the
composition.
film.
In the film?
Yeah.
Please.
وياك وياك الدنيا حلوة وياك في صفاك وجفاك أنا راضي يا حبيبي برداك تعاندني تكايدني مطرح ما تروح وياك.
क्या बात है. One more line.
I'm not sure that for
So this
Nusrat
song,
is
it sounds very nice and it sounds like a fun melody, romance, but in the film it's actually terrorizing. So he sings this as a soothing lullaby to me just before he's going to, yes, brutally violate my rights. This music and this tune is haunting. It's haunting. When we shot it, when we got out of it, even when he sings it now, I'm just there.
In that space. But let me ask you, how difficult, easy was it compared to your body of work? And there's a follow-up question which I've been waiting to ask you, but in terms of playing your character.
So, you know, the reason why I said no to it 3 years back is because I'm somebody who reads, I can't be dishonest with the material that I have. I think first and foremost, the actor in me will just not be able to do something I'm not fully convinced in. And when I read it, even though the script was nice, I felt like I was going to fall short. I felt like I have not had that kind of, and honestly before lockdown I had not done a single solo film. So to think of doing a whole film on my own, it was scary. I said, I don't think I can do these emotions. I don't think I can put myself through this. So maybe, I suggested other actors to them. I said, why don't you go to her or go to her? But I did Chori, I did Janhit, I did Ajeeb, I did all of these films. And when these guys came back to me after 3 years, I just somewhere felt like, you know, I'm opened up as a person. And also lockdown. Lockdown did give a lot of people their own perspectives.
Correct.
And a completely different way of seeing life and where they were. I changed a lot in those 2 years of lockdown as well, where I don't know how we as a whole team and me also just found the courage to do this film.
Would you agree, disagree if I were to say that everybody has good and bad in them? So when you got to play a bad character, you got to antagonist, you got to dive into and pull out some part of your, you know, personality and just give it some more shape and manifest. You may not be, because we choose to keep that aside and we choose to be certain people. But when you got to play something as intense as you're saying, you got to go through somebody who's struggling, who's all alone there and stuck. Did you dive into a life experience? Where did you find the inspiration, the peg to get into?
Every day. So you know, when any of us go through a trauma, we spend so much money, time, seek a therapist, talk to friends to get out of that trauma, right? And nobody wants to think of their childhood traumas or their yesteryear traumas. They don't want to think about them. But as actors, because I have no other trauma, like I have not gone through what Jyoti's gone through, it's not happened to me. So where do I get that from? So I have to visit the traumas of my life every single time. So no matter which film I pick, even though technically for mental health I should not be visiting, or actors should not be visiting, anybody should not visit their traumas again, but I sit and only think of those traumatizing moments of mine, go back in time, I become that child, I become that girl, and then I bring that emotion from there into this. But that's the only tool I have.
So then how do you circle back to sanity? How do you...
I take a break, Anand. I've not shot anything in the last 7 months.
It's been so intense?
It's been that. Because I did this and I did Chori too, back to back.
Yeah, Chori is also...
So it took everything I had out of me. I was sucked out of all kind of normalness also.
But one fun moment? Memorable moment from shooting the film?
No fun moments. Terrible.
Yeah. No, but okay, whatever. Well, whatever. I won't say fun. One memorable moment.
No, we had fun. No.
Interesting.
Memorable.
something that you'll take away and you'll say, all right, I'll always go back and remember this movie
I
because of this?
think it was Uzbekistan as a place where we shot.
Good evening. Pakistan's caretaker Prime Minister Anwaar-ul-Haq has included Mushaal Hussain Malik, the wife of Yasin Malik, in the cabinet of the caretaker government. Now, we all know who Yasin Malik is. He's the man who has been found guilty in a terror funding case for supporting unlawful activities. He was convicted by an NIA court here in the national capital, and right now he is in Tihar jail, the premier prison in this country, spending perhaps the rest of his life for all the wrongdoings that he committed. Now, the question is, what message is Pakistan attempting to convey? Here is the wife of a convicted terrorist